everyone for attending today's Lunch and Learn. We're going to be talking about GIS uploads for the Atlas Workbench, and understanding what those requirements are, why we think it's valuable to do that, and what resources we have available to you to streamline that process. We'll do a very brief refresher on the Workbench, and then we'll look at that integration between Workbench and the search and screening mapping tools, what we think the advantages of doing the GIS uploads that way is, and then we're going to walk through, and this will be the majority, I think, of the presentation, walk through how to do it and answer questions that folks might have about that process. So just really quickly, of course, Atlas advancing transportation through linkage, automation, and screening. There are 3 tools that are part of the Atlas tool stack currently. There's the search and screening tools, which are both map-based, and then there's the Workbench. And the purpose of Atlas was to evaluate how GIS can help us streamline project development. So a little bit more about the Workbench. The goal is to create a single source of truth for final project deliverables and ensure data governance is maintained for the project files. And part of that is 20 GIS uploads that we have that includes project alignment. There are a number of survey and study areas that are part of the GIS uploads, and then some preliminary jurisdictional delineations. And you can see here, I've got an example. The project mailing list boundary has been one of the uploads we've had. Oh, so we're going to do a short poll now that Katie is going to send out to try and have folks evaluate, so we can get a better sense of whether people are using the GIS tools and what their experience is with doing uploads through the Workbench. So if folks can answer those, and then we can figure out what those results look like, that would be great. And this is the first time we've used a poll during one of these lunch and learns, so hopefully it'll go seamlessly. All right. And Katie, I can't see the poll results. Can you see them for everything?
I can actually. I'll go over those. I guess it looks like we've got about half of you who have uploaded a document through the Workbench. About half of you have not. 62% of you have not uploaded any documents through Workbench. 69% of you have not uploaded a GIS file. And the majority have never uploaded a file. I've never needed to. So thank you guys for filling that out.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that gives us a good sense. And I think later on, we'd love to open up the floor and get a better sense of what some of those sticking points are for folks in terms of why you haven't uploaded any GIS files. Okay, Katie, I think you're taking over at this point in terms of presenting.
Are you going to share?
I will go. I am going. Oh, am I not sharing? Did it?
Yeah, the slide. Go
We
back to
just
the
learned.
slide.
Yep, there we go.
Great, thank you. All right, so let's jump in with how to actually access the Workbench, right? There are a couple of different ways to get in there. This is through the pre-construction. It's worth noting that Workbench is project specific. You find that through the Connect site. You enter in your project number. You go down to the Atlas tools, and there you'll find the different Atlas tools, and you can click on Workbench. Next slide, please. And this is the picture there is from actual Workbench. It's worth noting that it is organized by disciplines that you can see on the left with their headers and subheaders. Per tab, you can upload PDFs, spreadsheets, document sets, and GIS files. Next slide. So why upload GIS data through the Workbench? It helps DOT build a more comprehensive GIS data set, reduces redundant efforts, makes previously siloed data available to all DOT staff and consultants who have access to that project. It also helps in analysis on the back end, which you can create some pretty cool dashboards and whatnot from that information once it has been integrated in a standard comprehensive GIS format. Next slide, please. Oh, sounds great, but how do we know what data I need to upload? So we can find this stuff on the Atlas resource page. This is your hub for all things Atlas. For this particular training, we're just focusing on the Workbench standards and the GIS schema base files. That's going to be a zip file that you download, and we'll use those templates in ArcGIS Pro. Next slide, please. For the Workbench standards, just real high level, it's got plenty of geospatial information, file standards for it, metadata, naming conventions, spatial references. That's all in the very first part of that document. Next slide. Inside that document, you will find detailed information for every GIS layer that can be uploaded, right? So for this example, this is the project study area, GIS upload. As you can see, we've got the field names. It tells you whether that field is required or not required, the type of field it is, whether it's a text or a date, length of field, and then the description. So if you get in there and you're not quite sure what the prognum, I mean, that one's kind of obvious, but there's some in there that maybe aren't as obvious. You can check this and it'll let you know what that is. You can also use this if you decide to create the fields on your own, but we have the templates, the schema templates set up so you don't have to create those fields. Next slide. Also in the Workbench standards, we have expected values. We have links for these in the particular section that you're in. So if you're in traffic, there'll be a link down to these specific expected values. It tells you what field it is, and then, if you should enter, like for this one, the status, you would enter in either in progress or that it's complete. These are also known as domains for those of you who are GIS savvy. And the skinny of it is that it's really a pick list in domains that you can select. And we'll go over more of that further on in this presentation. Next slide. All right, so back to the GIS schema base files, which is what you would have downloaded from the Atlas resource page. This is the zip file that again has all of those schema or templates for all of the various 20 different GIS uploads. Each one of these schema or templates are going to have the correct fields that you will need to be able to upload it into Workbench. And without those fields, you'll run into errors if you try and upload, let's say, a project study area that doesn't have those particular fields and is not named as it's named here. Next slide. So we'll start this video. Let's get this going. We're going to connect. This is the demo. And we start by sketching a wetland from field data points. We'll start on the connect page over there, the resource page, and the standard Workbench document. Do note this is a living document and it's recommended to use the web-based version, so it's the most current. Locate the natural resource tab because that's what we're dealing with. You see there's a number of all the different file types that you can upload up top. And then down below are the GIS specifics. It lets you know which template you're going to need. So for this one, we're using the delineated wetlands. So we're in Pro, we're going to hop over and add that template or schema from wherever we saved it, right? Hit add delineated wetlands. And then in the catalog, you right click on your project and you're going to create a new shapefile. And in the shapefile, you give it the proper naming convention that's found over there on the right in the document. So you start with the TIP, underscore delineated, and then wetlands is the proper naming convention for this particular field or file. Then we're going to import the template that we have loaded. That's going to add those fields, update the coordinate system, and then hit run. So pretty easy to get that started. All right, I'm turning off those other fields we don't need. I'm going to go up to Edit and Create. Go down on the right-hand side in the templates, click the one we're editing. Make sure you're on the right one. Go ahead and sketch that out, connecting it to the points. Right, and then I'm going to go to Finish. So it finishes that polygon. I'm going to open up the attribute table here so we can populate those specific attributes for that polygon we just drew. And in our standards document is where you'll find which of these fields are required, and again, kind of what's expected for these fields. We'll show you that in just a second. The type. So in that document, we hop down to the different values for these, or what they actually mean. So the rating in this one is zip back up. Here it is. It's the rating from NC-WAM, high, medium, or low. So we're going to update that field. This is just one example. I'm not going to update all of these, but you can kind of see kind of how that works out. Report name. Obviously that report name would be different, but this is example. We're going to hit save on that. Make sure that that polygon gets saved. I've got that extra row on the bottom I accidentally created. I just deleted that. I'm resaving. You can still see that first line is the one I created. All right, let's hop over to the next video. All right, so in here, we're just kind of double checking those. We'll go up to edit, make sure that it's been saved, and then we're going to close this project, the ArcGIS Pro project. You want to make sure that's closed so you don't end up with a lock file on that shape file that's in there. And you can see that when you navigate to your Windows Explorer. Which I think we're headed there next.
Is is the save taking that long, Katie, or is the
No, I think it's stuck. Can you restart it?
yeah?
Just hit play. There we go. Okay, so now I'll go back to the your file explorer. There are your shape files. You have to zip up each part of that is a part of the shape file that needs to be zipped. And again, if you see some weird .lock file, usually it'll resolve if you just close map and make sure you have map closed. Otherwise it'll be locked. You want to zip that up, right click. Is it stuck again?
It may be. Let's find out.
There we go. All right.
Yep.
Send to compress zip. And that's the file we will be uploading in Workbench. So we're going to hop over to Workbench. For that particular project, this is again a test project, but you get the idea. We're going to go down to the Natural Resource tab, Water Resource Mapping, and there is our requested wetlands GIS shapefile. We'll upload the zip file to that. You'll get some messages if it's named incorrectly or doesn't have the proper schema. Look, success, we're good. So data and schema are valid for that one, which is awesome. That's what you want. Hit OK and make sure you hit save with this. Otherwise it won't be there later. And we can hop over to that's the screening and then the search tools. There's shortcuts within Workbench. We'll hop over to the search. This will take you straight to the project and you can add more layers as you see fit or templates. We're going to hop over to one I've already done. And this is that wetland that I created. It actually does already exist. It's in there. If you hit the identify tool, you can see all of the attributes that were previously filled out for that, which is pretty cool. On the left, I have these already preloaded, but these are all of the 20 different GIS uploads that you can see in real time in the search and screening tool. So any files that were uploaded in Workbench will then appear in search and screening for these GIS, these particular GIS files that are public facing. And you can load that. You can add study area, obviously, but you can load this template through the DOT Atlas templates, and it's on the very bottom. It's a new one we just created that basically shows you, it's called Workbench Uploads. Yep.
Yeah, so it's right down here. Nice. Thanks, Katie. That was great. Do we have any questions at this point about anything that we've talked about or that Katie just showed us? Just feel free to unmute if you don't mind.
In particular with wetlands, question I have, and this might apply to other files that might be generated during the project, is there a preliminary, is there going to be a final and preliminary file for these? As an example for the wetlands, for like a wet file, a WEX file, or are they going away from things like that?
So the Workbench, we try to keep that as up to date with the PDN standards, right, as they are currently. If you go back to the Workbench document, there is it's called water resource file, and that is the DGN upload, the new version for the WEX. Those have now been replaced with the water resource DGN file. The GIS naming conventions, those aren't really formal. It's more for mapping purposes and then just for the database. But they're not used. It's basically a copy of what is in the formal water resource DGN file. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for the question, Eric. Does anybody else have any questions? If not, we'll move on. Going once, going twice. All right. So let's talk about some of the problems that people can encounter when they're trying to upload the files. So the first is no shapefile found. And one of the issues that can occur for folks is a shapefile is really a misnomer because it actually consists of multiple files. And so you have to zip all of those up. A couple of these are kind of ancillary, but I always just zip everything up because if you're missing one of the crucial ones, you know, not only will it not upload to Atlas, but if you send it to anybody else, it won't. They won't be able to view it. And that happened actually recently with the company I work for. We ended up with corruption and we lost all of one of the key files. I think it was the .shx. So all of those shape files were corrupted. So yeah, got to package it all up and zip it up. Another issue, so you saw that Katie, when she did the demo, it said, oh yeah, the data in the schema are valid. In this case, there's an issue, a number of issues. The first is that there are several fields that are missing from the shapefile I was attempting to upload. And then another one was that the geometry was wrong. So I was trying to upload a wetland shapefile, but I was not uploading a polygon. So again, that can be an issue. And that's another reason to think about using those base files, those shape files, so that you know you've got the correct fields and again, the correct geometry. So why do we take all this time to make sure that we're validating the data type and what the schema is, what fields are in the layer? And that's because it, all goes back to data governance, and we want to make sure that we're getting the information that we need that's then going to be valuable to folks, and that we're getting consistent information from project to project. So what do you do if you get an error message? First thing I would do is go back to the standards document and look at the shapefile or the layer you're trying to upload. Check that your fields are valid. You've got the ones in there, and also that required, not required. And as I said earlier, just make sure you're using those Atlas base files. So we are currently testing some new tools for folks to use, and the goal is really to make it easier to create those GIS files that match the standards for the Atlas GIS layers. Katie had mentioned domains earlier, and the fact those aren't supported by in shapefiles, and so you don't get to get a drop down because the domain values aren't supported. So we've created a geodatabase that has those same 20 layers in it, but again, it allows us to use the domain values. And then along with that, we've currently created two tools. One is to create a copy of those layers. Essentially, it creates a copy of the entire geodatabase. So you may have noticed that when Katie did the demo, she had the wetland delineation shapefile, and she essentially made a copy of it. She said, use this shapefile as the template for a new layer I want to create. So this tool essentially automates that process. And then on the back end, instead of you having to go and find the shapefile and zip it up, what it does is it actually exports any layer you want to export. It will export it to a shapefile, and then it zips it up. So you just have to go to wherever you save that file and upload that zipped shapefile. So you can be assured that we'll have the information that you need it to have. Okay, so I am gonna try an on-the-fly demo of this, but before I do that, I thought I would just sort of talk through. So what we're doing currently is some beta testing on this. And so at the end, if you're interested in helping us do some testing on it, it'd be great if you could just drop your name and email address into the chat. So anyway, and there are instructions in the sort of package that we've created. So you would download the Atlas Pro project database and toolbox zipped. Then you unzip that and find the Atlas Pro project. Again, we've got instructions in there. And then once the Pro project opens, you would go to the catalog pane. You have to expand it so you can see the toolboxes, and then you'd create a new project map and database. When you do that, it'll open up this tool, and it will request that you add in the project ID, and then you indicate what your template database is going to be. So it's going to create a new copy of the database, and by default, it is going to point to that Atlas one. but just in case you moved it or anything else happened, then you would go ahead and navigate to the location. So I think I actually, let's try this. So again, the project ID, the templates database, and then you click run at the bottom. And it'll make what it does is it makes a new dedicated map inside of that pro project, and it will load all of the layers that are part of that Atlas database into the project. All right, so I'm going to drag this pro project over here. I'm going to hope to. Does anybody have any questions while I am doing this part of it? Okay. So obviously I've already opened the database and used the tool once, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again. So when the pro project first opens, the catalog pane will be open, but nothing will be expanded. So you go into toolboxes and create new project map and database. And just so you can see it, here's the schema template database. And it has, again, those 20 layers that can be uploaded through the Workbench. And I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to add a new number that I'm just going to make up out of my head. The default, again, is that template database. You hit run. Oh, apologies. Excellent. So it loads all of the layers. All of the layers are, of course, empty. I'm going to bring in those field points that Katie had in her demo. I'm going to zoom to them. I'm going to label them. Katie, do you know what they're labeled with? All right, I'm just going to.
I think it's ID.
Okay, that makes sense. Label them? Nope.
Nope. Label.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
All right, fantastic. So this process will be the same as what Katie demoed earlier. And so I've got obviously everything under the sun in here currently. So you have to make sure you find that correct layer. And I'm going to hit save. And it's clear. Now I want to test something. I didn't do this previously, but so I haven't filled out any of the fields that are part of this feature, right? All of those are empty. So, and I have not tested this on this iteration of the tool. So this could be a mistake on my part. So what I've just done, I didn't talk that through. Let's say I'm now ready to export the data to the zip shapefile so I can then upload it to Atlas. Double click on that. This gives me the drop down of all the features that are in this, all the layers that are in this particular map. So again, it was the delineated wetlands. I've got one record selected. As it happens, it's the only record that's in there. You could then add additional, like if you have several you want to export at the same time, you can do that. My output folder, pull this over here. I'm going to put it inside of that Atlas zipped shapefiles. Now, if the tool is running, if this iteration of the tool is running as I want it to be, I have not completed any fields, so it should give me an error. So here we go. Okay. So it did give me an error. So it's missing a value in the required field project number. So in that case, I'm going to go back and project number. Now it doesn't validate it against whatever you've called this map and the name of the geodatabase. So you could put a totally different value in there if you wanted to. All right, again, wetlands. And go to that zipped shapefiles, hit run, and now it's exported it. And at that point, as I said, you would then go ahead and go to that location and then go through the steps that Katie showed in terms of uploading it into the Workbench. All right. So that was what I just ran through a minute ago. And as I mentioned earlier, we are looking for people to help us with the testing. All right, that's the end of this month's Lunch and Learn. I'm going to stop sharing. Does anybody have any questions?
What's the best process if somebody wants to make a change to the fields that are required or wants to add or remove any fields?
So in other words, like there's a lot of fields in the wetlands, the delineated wetlands, and that business team decides that we don't actually need the Cowardin in there. Is that what you mean, Teresa?
Right. Or if the request is even coming from a practitioner who says, I don't have this data, I can't fill it in. What's the next steps?
Okay. Yeah. Katie, do you want to answer that question since you're within the DOT?
Sure, you can email the Atlas help desk, atlas@ncdot.gov, and the business team will take a look at those and most likely adjust, which is what we'll be doing on the next iteration, is adjusting some of those fields, removing additional ones that aren't really necessary for the upload.
Okay. And if a field is required, but I don't have anything to fill in it, I can have the field and it can be blank, right?
You cannot. If it's required, it's gonna check for it upon upload.
So it needs to have the field there, but does it have to have data in every one of the rows?
It needs, so that particular field will need a value in it if it's a required field. And most of those should just be like report number, and it basically allows that spatial data to tie back to something.
Thanks.
So that's because there are only 3 required fields across all 20 of the features, right? There's the project num, and what are the other 2, Katie?
I think it's the create date.
Oh, right.
See.
Is it the doc URL?
No, doc URL, and some of those will be automatic too, and you can see that in the table. Those will get updated on the back end, and that includes the doc URL, the project URL. those will be links within within the site to actually take you to those documents. Let me see if I can
Do you
pull
want to
that up.
screen share as opposed to
Yeah,
me? And
can do that.
so I think one of the things we should make folks aware of is there's a fair amount of coordination between the business team and NCDIT around these GIS layers that then get displayed in the Atlas search and screening because of the validation process. So, Teresa, in terms of your question of like, oh, can we have a field removed or anything like that? The answer is yes, but it's not a, you know, the business unit reaches out to us, the technical staff reaches out and says, no, let's get rid of this field. And the next day we're able to get rid of it. We have to coordinate with NCDIT to make that possible. And we're always looking for, other GIS layers that it would make sense to upload through the Workbench and make available on Atlas. But again, there's a run-up time to that that's slower than if we were just making a simple change. Like if you said, we want to upload this PDF.
Thanks. And if
Sure.
there's layers, if there's attributes that are not required, and is it better for me to get it uploaded through Atlas, even if I don't have something to put in, or is it better to wait and maybe I can get that data later?
Sorry, I'm
I would,
struggling over here.
that's all right. The answer is that you want to just go to the resources page, Katie. That's what I would have done.
Let's do that. I don't know why that's not coming up currently.
I would say it's better to upload it, but I don't know if Lalani or Katie has a different perspective on that.
To
Like if it's a
upload what?
non-required, if someone has data, GIS data, but they don't have some of the non-required field information, should they just go ahead and upload it, or should they wait in the hopes that they can get some of the non-required field info?
I mean, honestly, if you could get it in a reasonable amount of time, but if you're working on that project and it's going to be done by Friday and you're moving on, I mean, go ahead and upload it.
What if I get the data later? Can I re-upload the layer with
Great,
the
great point.
updated fields?
That's a great
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, you can, Teresa. There's a trigger actually. So if you upload, let's take the wetland stuff that Katie was showing us. If she uploaded that today and then next week uploaded it again, you would only see the latest version of the upload in the map.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So I think we were talking about the different field types, right? So we can see we've got some fields, we've listed them here because they're visible to you, but they're automatic. They're not user defined. And then we've got the required fields, which Katie's right, it's project number, create date, and then map ID. And those are consistent across all 20 of them.
And we've updated this too, where you can jump down to these expected values. These are what would also be called domains if it was in a geodatabase. So just to kind of give you a clue, well, I don't know what are they looking for rating? Well, this is it, and those are the values that are expected. And then you can jump back up to your deliverable, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, actually, Katie, that was something I did not. I'm going to steal the share back from you.
Sure.
So we were talking about the domains and how you can't use them with. So you can obviously write the value in. You can manually type in the value into a shape file field. with the geodatabase, part of the reason we wanted to explore using it and seeing if that has value for folks is then we're able to create the domains in the geodatabase and tie them to specific fields. So you don't have to go and look and be like, well, what are my rating options? What should I put in? You just go ahead and select the ones that are tied to domains. So we're also hoping that this may encourage folks who have these GIS uploads, like the teams that are involved with them, to think about, oh, are there other fields for which I'd like to have a set domains? Because obviously it streamlines things for the user, but it also means that you'll get more consistent data on the back end, right? Because it won't be, some people will capitalize, some people will misspell words, as we all do, and that type of issue that can also come up.
Yeah, those domains also help facilitate that data governance.
Yeah,
So
that's a great
with
point.
a large database of GIS data and it's captured consistently the same, it's a lot easier to do different things with that.
Yeah, good point. All right,
Can you
thanks.
show us again where you go on the resource page to download the base file schema? The schema
Sure.
base files?
Yep. It helps if I'm actually in the page. So Atlas Resources, and sort of just below the fold, here's the schema base files. And so we keep these up to date. If you click on that, maybe I have to click on this. It should download it. Ah, there we go. And again, it comes in, as Katie mentioned, as a zip file. You can then unzip it.
And you just want to be mindful of where you place that so you can find it later.
Right, exactly. So that's it. And the 20 shapefiles that are in this folder are also going to be the 20 that are discussed in the Workbench standards document. Yeah. Any other questions about where to find things, problems that you've had trying to do the uploads, goals, ambitions you have for how you'd like to see more?
Do the GIS zip files also end up on SharePoint?
Excellent question. Katie and Lilani, my assumption is the answer is yes to that.
Yes,
but
that's correct. They do.
Okay.
I believe. Let me double check now that I'm thinking about this.
Anyone else?
And the key there is that when you do upload your GIS files, then you get it in the search tool. You get it on the map. So if you're uploading a delineation, then you can flip over to search and see that delineation in a map along with the several other environmental layers that you want to turn on.
Yeah,
And
again,
then as people load it, then it builds, like Sean was saying and Katie were saying, it builds a repository where you could go in there and look at other delineations that have been done in close proximity to your project or in a certain region.
yeah, I think it's such a great resource. We were doing some work down in South Carolina last month, and the field crew that we had out that was doing a delineation came back and said, well, there were flags that someone else had hung for the same wetland back in November of 2024. And it really brought home for me the power of Atlas existing and this ability to upload data and make it available to the entire, not only to DOT, but also any consultants who are doing field work and other type of work. So yes, going back to Eric's question, I'm in the U1050 where we've uploaded some GIS files, and you can see they're zipped up right here and available as well. That's a great question, Eric.
And as you see in that folder, the one I did for training purposes. I didn't completely upload it, which is why it's not in there currently, but you get the idea.
Right, exactly. So, anything else we can help folks out with?
Or if there's GIS uploads that you would like to see, let us know too. It doesn't have to be today. You can always email Atlas at NCDOT, and we can see about getting those in there.
Yeah, definitely. And it doesn't have to be for your group. It can be for another group. I think that's it. I guess I will stop the recording.
And then any other further questions?